I think that's just the piece is, if you're not up on what's happening in the council meetings, we had the elections, a 3-hour council meeting over the charter revisions.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not watching that and you didn't watch the full thing, you didn't see the charter committee provide the recommendations and council going back and forth on why council was a certain way on something, while the charter committee was recommending it based upon their 6-month dialogue.
Yeah.
And then again, when we actually went to vote things in, even the dialogue amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
Before we came, so you have someone asking why the 75 and the 150, or why these different organizations, or why these communities, committees. And it's all in there in the 3 hours because I made sure that we did it transparently.
Right.
Instead of an executive session and you're coming out making decisions and nobody knows why a decision was made.
Yeah, yeah.
So it just boils down to, it's like, unfortunately, because we don't have a dedicated news channel, you know what I mean, or weekly news reports and stuff like, or daily news reports.
Right.
You don't get that. You don't get all that information.
Right.
And so if you're used to someone stopping by your house or stopping by the local grocery store and having that dialogue and having that discussion, right?
Yeah.
I purposely have been moving away from that, knowing that as we grow and become more complex, we can't do that. It's not sustainable.
No, it's not.
Keep everybody informed. Yeah.
No, it's not.
So that's where all these different structural things are coming into place to make sure everybody is informed or has multiple ways to be informed, right? Without there being this perceived favoritism of certain people in the know versus other people not in the know.
Right. That comes along with small town. Mm-hmm. Who's on his list? Who's his favorite? You get that in every facet of leadership, though. You know what I mean? Even taking over churches and things like that, I faced that. Who's his teacher's pet, so to speak, and coming into the church, I don't know nobody. Everybody's cool. You just try to treat everybody the same.
And that's the hardest piece. You gotta treat everybody the same.
Testing 1 2.
You have to have
Testing
access to
1 2.
everyone, right? But there are certain people that always come into your circle through natural engagement, and so they have more access, more contact. They're naturally kept more abreast of things than the others that you may not even pass in non-traditional formats, right? So again, as we're growing in this forced growth, how do you establish that?
Yeah.
Right? So a person that would in no way probably come across paths with me because they're not in the same
Testing 1 2.
Events organizations.
Testing 1 2.
Right?
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you all for joining us on this evening. We have David Cox, Pastor David Cox here, having some real talk with the Honorable Dr. Larry Wallace Jr., Mayor of Manor, Texas. We are here having real talk, commemorating the 100th anniversary of the Negro League Baseball League. And we wanted to dedicate this show, this first real talk with me as the moderator, to them, to let everybody know that this is a show that is dedicated to that commemoration. Thank you for having me in your home.
Oh, no problem, man. I'm just sharing this on different pages real quick. No, I mean, the biggest thing, like I told you before, is how do we show, or how do I show, how does council and city hall really show, the personable side of the decision making, the aspects more than probably this out there that we can kind of clean up and refine, from messages that go out, from posts on social media that go out, to news segments that are recorded, and then even city council, right? We have dialogues.
Yeah.
I have dialogues with other individuals, but how do I ensure that everybody else within the community has at least that opportunity to know a little bit more about the person that they've elected into position to kind of steer the strategic visioning of the city?
Absolutely.
And a lot of it comes from, military background. We talk about this all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And saying here is traditionally the leader, the commander, right, of his unit when it came to holidays and events, inviting people in that were part of their staff, that were their other leaders in to help build that camaraderie, that rapport.
Yeah.
So that way they knew that even when they may be hard on them or they have to make those hard decisions that may not be favorable, they understood that where it was coming from because they knew the person.
Right.
So that's the intent of Real Talk and why I wanted to reach out to you, because you got all the thought-provoking questions going on there. And I said, who's gonna ask me the hard questions and make me sit back and say, ooh, you decided to go there, okay?
Well, I do. I love those thought-provoking questions. I love to have people thinking.
Right.
And in your thinking, coming up with solutions for different things that, especially these current events and things that are happening in the news today, and that are impacting people's lives. So I want people to really, really think about, how would I react in a certain situation, and does that really make sense? Is that really the best thing to do? So, I love it. So I'm glad you picked me. I'm honored that you picked me to do this, and absolutely we can go back and forth with a lot of different things. I definitely want something that's interesting, and I want to share with them is how I got in trouble earlier this week.
Oh no!
Earlier last week, how I got in trouble, and the reason I got in trouble. So I'm gonna need you to explain it, because it was my idea, right? That I was doing something noble, and then I got the proverbial call. It was through text. That's why I said proverbial. So my wife said you tagged her in a post. I was like, it was honorable. I promise you. So I posted. Yeah. I posted this post that said, "Who would you nominate to be Manor Woman of the Year?" And one of the supporters of the post said that it should be the mayor's wife, if he's married, right? So my question to you, is, why are there people out there in your community that don't know you married? Now I want to know.
I think it's just because the wife, my wife, she doesn't necessarily feel that she has to be with me in all these things. I mean, we got married when I was in command for NATO, and I had to go out to a lot of different events. And she would pick and choose which ones she would want to go. I'd be like, hey, you want to go with this one to me? And she'd be like, nah, I have no interest in that. She has her own career. Absolutely. She has her own interests. And sometimes they don't necessarily align with going out to an event where, as a leader, I'm more inclined to go out to an event because I need to show my face. I need to interact, right? And she more or less would just say, hey, go have fun. I'm going to sit here, watch my TV show, Power, or whatever it may be, right? Or prep up for school the next day. Yeah. So that's why most people probably don't necessarily know who she is, because she's not always with me. Yeah. And it's not a fact that I'm keeping her at home or anything like that. It's just the fact that she doesn't necessarily have that interest. She understands what I'm doing, fully supports it, but she also feels all right and comfortable to say, go out, do what you need to do as an obligation for the role and the position that you're in, that's got nothing to do with me. Now if there's issues going out there and they start to come home, then I'm gonna start paying attention.
Absolutely. I my wife is the same way. That's why I could identify. As soon as you said it, I could identify with that. She was thrust into this role as first lady of the church, and she no way in the world my wife ever wanted to be anything close to that. So, any of the events as pastor I gotta go to and things like that, she's usually never with me, but she supports me. She'll ask me, do you want me to go? I'm like, you don't have to go. You got things you need to do around here. So I fully understand.
But you're right. As soon as I walked in that door, I don't think I got more than 2 to 3 steps in the door. This is what I got. Let me tell you what happened today. I got tagged in on a post. And so I wanted to give you the heads up.
I beg you, tell her, please. I didn't mean no harm.
But when I tell you, I said, I know that. And so whenever I tag her, I'm doing it because she doesn't like it.
Okay.
She just doesn't like it. She doesn't like getting tagged, period. So
I won't do it ever. I'll just say yes, he is. What about your kids?
My kids?
Yeah.
I string them along. I do. I bring them, because I'm out a lot, right? Whether it's an event or whether it's some other type of volunteering I'm doing. So I think most people probably see more of the little guy, Levi. Is getting ready to be 2 years in a couple of months. They see more of him because I'm trying to really help move him away from the wife being, just kind of hanging and clinging on the wife. The other two are more in kind of cruise control. But I usually, last year, been doing a lot of the coaching or supporting the kids in sports. And I always try to make it to all the activities that they have over at school. So in that aspect, you'll probably see a lot more of the kids. We just did a Pledge of Allegiance video that we submitted for an event that happened a couple of weeks ago. So you see more of that. The wife is more like, I don't need to be in that.
Well, you spoke about military, and I wanted to talk about how your military career made you ready to be mayor of Manor.
I don't think I'll say made me ready, right? And I know a lot of people don't necessarily know my military experience and probably
it's
why.
It's extensive.
It probably
they need to look at it. It is. I mean, it's impressive. How can you do all that?
The wife says, don't nobody care about it. Nobody wants to read all that.
How can you do all of that and go to school and,
real quick before we go to the question, when I went into the military, into the Army, it was under be all you can be. And that really struck a chord. And it was not just be all that I can be, but where's my breaking point? And if I didn't break with this on my plate, let me add something else. And if I didn't break with that on my plate, let me add something else. And then since I can do all these and I didn't break, if I drop all this and pick all this up over here that I now have as an interest, I already know what I'm able to do because I didn't break. Right? And breaking means something I should have never picked it up. Because I wasn't able to make it, occur naturally or happen or be successful or whatever you want to call it, right? So that's one aspect. The other thing was when I was in advanced training, one of our instructors said, don't give me timelines because I'm gonna go for them. And she said, if you're high speed, in 4 years, you become a staff sergeant. And that was my goal.
Oh, wow.
That was my goal. So I made sergeant in 3 years. I got my drill sergeant hat in 4 years. I got commissioned in 5 years.
Wow.
Right? And so it was kind of that. It was like, oh, you telling me I could do something?
See, don't tell me that. You're telling the wrong guy.
You're right. And so from there, it's been a lot of that of, okay, I know at least where my breaking point hasn't been at yet. So I at least have that understanding of who I am going in.
Yeah.
Now, when you start talking about what are some of the things that I might have gotten from my military experience that have proven beneficial here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, some things that people don't know. When I was my first deployment, 2007, when I was 27, it was a committee of me and about 4 other people, and we had to make a determination of about 10 to 14 Iraqis whether they stayed in jail or got out.
Wow.
Right? 27. It's probably the
27 years old.
first time, 10 to 14 packets. I got colonels, sergeant first classes, all different structures, people coming in,
Yeah.
and guys and gals from guys from anywhere from a couple of years to almost a decade in the Iraqi prison.
Wow.
And they've learned these different skills or whatever it is, and they're telling their case, they're telling what they're going to want to do when they get out, and then us 4 have to then sit there and make a decision in a couple of minutes whether or not they should be released
Like a parole board.
or retained.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, my father and I, we talk about stuff like this, and I talk like, you know, these things with other people, even my council members, and saying, you know, there's leading, there's managing, but not a lot of people actually had to make life or death situations calls, right? And I think when you're talking about with COVID going on right now, the social injustice going on right now, you're seeing the difference in people that are just used to what they consider to be leading, managing, and then ones that they're really having to see and understand the decisions that they make and the ramifications it's going to have.
Yeah.
You know, so being 27 and having to make a decision, voting on whether someone stays in jail or not. We had a soldier that shot his weapon in the air in Iraq during my, I think it was during my first deployment. And I'm the sole person that had to listen to the situation with the person and then make a determination.
Yeah.
You know, and it was to demote the individual and to confine them to their small little quarters in Iraq, where there's nothing at.
Yeah.
And he popped the round off because of the heat and just being out there posting guard security day in, day out just by himself, right?
Yeah.
When I commanded in NATO, you know, having to make a determination to restrict a spouse from coming on base due to domestic violence.
Yeah.
And you're overseas, and that's the only, at that time, the American connectivity that the individual had, right? So making that decision saying you're basically restricting them from coming on base to anything that's U.S. related in Germany, right? Wow. And then one last example would be is I had a staff sergeant when I was in NATO. She was right on the cusp of retiring, hitting retirement eligibility. And she was having difficulties, missing home and whatnot. And she went home, unfortunately, did something stupid, came back, and basically did not own up to it. And so I initially had to make a recommendation to kick her out.
Wow.
So you put in over a decade into the military, made a stupid decision. I'm making a determination to my boss that she'd be kicked out. And her justification to me was, I put in all this work. Doesn't that mean something? And I have to unfortunately look back and say, you put in all that work. Didn't that mean something?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so those are the type of leadership decision principles, leadership decision, decisions I've had to make and had to live with.
Yep.
Right? So coming into this unfortunate dual disaster that we're in, it's having that type of experience, hard lessons learned that, you know, as we talk and you know, we're talking is the decisions and the recommendations and the guidance I'm giving. I'm really cautious on what I say and what we move forward on and how I work with the team and trying to make sure the team truly understands. And then the next step is, how do I get the community to understand that we as leaders, we're really looking into these things. We're really asking the hard questions. You may not see that up front, but it is happening.
Absolutely.
Trust me, it is happening.
Absolutely. You would have to be blind to see that the progress isn't being made in Manor. You know, I arrived here in 2003, and I'm gonna tell you, a lot of things have changed since then. So you would have to be blind not to see the progress. And you're mayor 24 hours a day. 24/7. Whether you come home to go to bed or not, you still mayor. You get the phone call, you got to get up and go. Would you consider this position as mayor of Manor, Texas, your full-time job?
What I say to my team and what I say to City Hall is I put in part-time work because it's what's needed right now, right? The hat, the position, the roles, the responsibilities, yes, it's 24 hours. The same way as me being an officer, me being a drill sergeant, even when I was in the military, right? Even when I was deployed, I couldn't take the rank off because everybody knew who I was.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
The certain expectation was there. The certain upholding certain principles was there. You can't remove that.
Yes.
Whether you're 100% volunteer,
Yeah.
whether you're part-time or whether you're full-time, right? But I would say as far as, you know, what is he really doing? I would say definitely part-time. And part-time because now we're doing so more engaging externally to Manor, learning about other organizations,
Yeah.
different mayor, council level types of organizations that are nationwide that are providing us intangible information, resources, and so far, a lot of them at no cost. You know, in letting us be able to be involved with them without actually having an active membership because they know where we're at.
Yeah.
They know we don't have a budget.
That's right.
To have that membership. But I will tell you the difference now is how is council, right, assisting City Hall in this forced growth, right? Because City Hall, I mean, we have members, almost everyone's working almost 2 to 3 different types of jobs.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at ourselves as council as saying, all right, we know that we're not supposed to do these certain things because it's a City Hall responsibility, but how are we bringing additional information and resources? How are we bringing in knowledge in the areas that the team may not have? How are we being maximizing, right?
Yeah.
And making sure Manor manages this forced growth versus we just deal with whatever ends up happening through developers, through landowners or whatever. How do we make sure we're having a conversation with them?
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
How do we make sure we're informing the community of decisions that, you know, the Green Line, that's going to be $130 million.
Yes, sir.
Next decade to start, hopefully. But we got to come up with $130 million somewhere. And that conversation has to start now.
Yes.
Right? So how are we as council helping out City Hall? How are we helping to sit down and look at what's growing, what's going to happen with Amazon, with Tesla? We're talking 290, we're talking 973, we're talking about, you know, Lexington, all these things, right?
Yeah.
And how are we tying into more than just the Texas Municipal League, you know, TML? How are we tying more into just the CAPCOG, the Capital, I can't give you the acronym for that, but, you know, how are we tying into the National League of Cities and one that I'll be honest, and some people may say, well, you know, why is the African American mayor associated with the African American Mayors Association? I will tell you that one organization by itself has given us 5 free programs.
Dang.
Social justice,
Yeah.
entrepreneurs focus,
Yeah.
and probably about 3 other ones that we're working on.
Yeah.
That one it got us connected into White House calls early on in COVID.
Yeah.
It's, you know, and that's the thing is, that's why council is asking to look at developing a budget for those types of memberships, because there's so much stuff that's out there.
Yes.
That we don't have to do this alone by ourselves and blindly.
That's right.
We don't have to just look at Austin and Pflugerville and the cities right next to us.
Yeah.
There's these national organizations that are pulling in information, holding workshops, holding seminars, holding institutes, and building that connective relationship with all these different influencers. And when you start talking about economic development, right?
Yeah.
Man, you already know this. It's about how do you brand yourself? How do you put together the marketing packet? Those are things we're trying to do right now, right? And so we just can't rely on the same old one or two entities we've been relying on when we're going into a totally new situation for the city.
You brought up the African American council of mayor. Being the first African American mayor of Manor is honorable all in itself. It speaks to the diversity of the city in itself and the acceptance of new Manor, so to speak. Tell us a little bit about how has that impacted you personally? Being the first African American mayor of Manor, 50% Hispanic, 30% black, 20% white, and the expectations that come along with that.
Right.
Because, hey, we got a man of color in office.
Yeah.
He's gonna work for us.
Yeah.
He's gonna do what we need him to do, and it don't work like that all the time. So can you speak a little bit to how the expectations of the first African American mayor hits differently for the city of Manor than if it had been any other creed?
Right. I think one, you're talking about anytime it's the first, right? You're naturally going to have more support than traditional.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of that early on from other cities and so forth, for other individuals saying, hey, I didn't know that much about Manor, but I do know you, or I saw the media, I got some interest, to see you be successful, right? And me being successful in this sense is Manor being successful, right? So I think, early on it was, how do I ignite that focus, right? And not on me, but how do I get the message out that this is an accomplishment that the city of Manor has done? Look at where they're going in decision making. Looking at whoever has the right role, the right skills, and so forth. And it's not just based off of anything else, right? Mm-hmm. How do we message that and get more people interested that are not local? So I did a lot of messaging on LinkedIn and so forth, and reaching out to people. And then it came to, all right, even talking with the wife, it was, all right, now I got to switch this.
Yeah.
I got to switch this to, how's it now going to be, I need whatever support you're giving me to be support for Manor.
Right.
Right. And that transition has been good because there's a lot of entities that are wanting to come in and provide, so to say, partnerships or collaborations that don't necessarily have a monetary ask to it, right? Yes. Because you're not only talking about how do we support this significant movement within the city of Manor, but then, your population is what? You're close to who? We didn't know all these other things. Of course, we definitely want to tie in and do that. So it's a lot of it is kind of, how do you take this one message and then spin it to where it's support that's beneficial to the city? Yeah. As being the first African American mayor, I think being the first anything, you have this I can't fail mentality. Yeah. Right? And everything is a little bit harder. You have this aspect of I know, at least for me, it's making sure people understand where I'm coming from. And that is not a thing of trying to make myself look good. Right. Right. And as you kind of said before, I got all my other stuff that I've done. Yes. Right. I'm not getting paid for this. Even if the city voted in the compensation that was recommended by the charter and by council, even put that in, I mean, that again still would not for anybody else have them leave a job because now they're getting a big salary, right?
Right.
I mean, it's still volunteer. It's just at least the city showing in a way and saying, we want you to be more focused in what you're doing than you know, just 100% volunteer. And that conversation that we had was council, and even with the charter committee, is if I'm just 100% volunteer, then you can't look at me and say, well, why didn't you go to that meeting? Why didn't you go to that event? Why aren't you out networking? Because I'm saying, I'm volunteer, bro.
But you know what though? That's completely in line with everything I want to ask you about, because the hours you put in being mayor, how many would you say that is first? Weekly?
I don't even know. I don't track it.
I'm
just gonna say part-time, because part-time to me would be like any regular job. Part-time, maybe
20 hours a week, 30,
I'll probably say 20 or so.
A day, I mean.
Because it changes, it fluctuates. 1 week will be a lot less than the next week.
Yeah.
And it's all based upon emails, engagements I'm trying to set up, conversations I'm trying to have, because I'm not just talking about Manor.
Yeah.
I think this is the other piece most people don't know. I'm the only African American mayor for Travis County.
Yes.
You know, and me and Victor Gonzalez, I think we're the only two minority mayors.
Yeah.
And there's a piece of that too where I feel I have an obligation to make sure I'm advocating too for the underserved, underrepresented, and minority populations for the county as well, because we don't have that voice.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm doing a lot of conversations as much as I'm doing for Manor as I'm doing for Travis County.
Yeah.
And that also connects me in other areas.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's assisting with the Boy Scouts who now want to be more heavily diverse.
Yes.
And they're creating a committee trying to do that stuff. Or an email I got today from UT Austin where they're trying to look at creating a trust committee, right? Mm-hmm. So there's other things that Mayor is involved in, but it may not be specifically where it's impacting locally here, but my involvement in with the city of Manor's name
carries Manor.
We're involved in county stuff. We're involved in
I've seen
national
that.
stuff.
You know, as soon as you took office, that took off. It really did. That took off. And when you are talking about being the first African American mayor of Manor, and then the only African American mayor in Travis County, how do you bridge the gap without the African American being so overbearing that I want to do everything for, or be expected to do everything for Black people, and then and let every resident know that you're here for them, for the city. For,
let me tell you this. So I said this to our city manager, and I said this to Dr. Harvey, who's on council, but also principal over at Manor Independent School District. And early on, he was like, "Hey, we need to do some stuff for Black History Month." And I pushed back, right? I'm like, "Nah, man, I just gotta like the end." I said, "I can't do that, man." I said, no, man. I said, because then what happens next month? And we don't have all these things going on, right? He said, I get it, but we need to do something. I said, well, let's start after February, right? And that was my goal. And then next thing you know, I got all these calls and emails to do stuff.
Yeah.
And I think we were probably in the middle of the month.
Yeah.
And I looked to our city manager. I said, I'm doing too much Black stuff. I said, I'm doing too much. And I was really nervous. I'm like, what am I going to do next month? Right? And just how Tom is, he's like, I don't see it being a problem. He's like, they're asking you to come out to do these things. It's not like you're setting it up and doing it. I said, yeah, I get it, Tom. But I said, my mind is, I'm like, I get it, but what happens next month?
Yeah.
And these activities do not stay consistent or slowly go
That's
down,
exactly right.
And so I was looking at that. I'm like, oh man. I'm doing all this stuff, and I get it. I understand the pride. I understand the wanting to show that honor or whatever because of Black History Month. But even me was a piece of, yes, I'm going out. I'm able to show people you can be personable and be a leader. You don't have to be a prick.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
You can be involved in all these different organizations and not have to hide it, because I've had bosses that didn't tell people they were Alpha Phi Alpha or they were Masonic or whatever.
Yeah.
Because they felt that glass ceiling. They felt they were in that glass
bubble.
bowl,
Yeah.
right? And so for me it was, I'm gonna show it. You know, you can be smart, you can make hard decisions. At the same time, you can sit back, wear some shorts and a t-shirt and your chain and joke around and have fun.
That's right.
Right? But yeah, I mean, it's trying to balance that out. And I think a lot of times, even with the military, you know, I was fortunate to have, be in organizations where I had diverse populations spread out across different countries, across different territories. The bosses were all of different ranks, the same ranks, a lot of times higher than me. So it was, how do I have my overall role and responsibility of administrative support, but then at the same time, understanding each individual area's need, right? Making sure each one of them felt I was truly supporting them as their commander or as their personnel officer or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
Instead of over focusing on one person. So I think those experiences have come into where it's saying, all right, I know because of my ethnicity, because of my race, there are some things I need to do because of the position I'm in to help have a voice, right? But at the same time, that's why I've gone with more underserved, underrepresented, and minority populations, because even in the most heavily minority Black populations, the Caucasians are the underserved, underrepresented.
Absolutely right.
In some other places, it's going to be someone else. So I haven't necessarily blanketed myself in an aspect. I'm more or less trying to make sure the narrative, the words I say. I've even was corrected by he's not here anymore. He worked over at Vera, Dr. Vera.
Yes.
Right. We were sitting over at the governor's economic in tourism department and talking and stuff, and I was saying, yeah, you know, the minorities, this and all that. And he stopped me afterwards, and he's like, look, you need to stop saying that. You need to start saying underserved, underrepresented.
Yes, right.
He said, because minorities are not the only ones that are underserved and underrepresented, and you will find yourself pigeonholing yourself and getting in trouble when you're using the wrong term.
Yes.
And I was like, appreciate it. And so I made that change. So that's where I think I've been really trying to make sure I take care of everybody. And even to that factor is ensuring or trying to help the quote unquote older Manor understand that they're not forgotten.
Absolutely.
They're not being left behind.
They can't be.
You know, they are definitely included in a lot of the conversations.
Absolutely.
Of how are we supporting them? How are we making sure that even with the growth that's occurring, that growth wouldn't be able to happen if it wasn't for them.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And a lot of times I say, how do you build around Old Manor? And Old Manor becomes that historical, you know, the ground zero area of respect and pride that none of this other stuff would be here if it wasn't for there. And it's going to require that growth. It's going to require a lot of the money that we're receiving through revenues and whatnot to build certain things, bring things in before we're able to then be able to have enough money coming in through revenue to really put focus back on how do we renovate, how do we restore Old Manor. And it's not a fact that we're just trying to push them to the side.
Not at all.
It's like any other business, right? I only have a certain amount of money in the bank. I need a bigger house. I need a better car. My laptop doesn't work. You know, I need new tires on the other car. You know, the kid needs to go get braces. And it's like, which one is the priority right now? And whatever I spend it on, you hope that you spend it in the right place because it's actually going to relieve you in two other areas versus you go with not making that in-depth decision, right? And I know this is going to sound bad, but we've seen it in some organizations where they listen to the loudest scream.
Yes.
And that's where they focused, and that's not where the money should have went.
Yeah.
And it ends up down the road reflecting that.
Yeah, that could be the death of you.
Yeah.
Right there. Came here in 2003. First time ever driving through downtown Manor. It didn't have a stoplight. It had a street sign at that point. And I had never seen, coming from up north, had never seen an actual country little town like downtown Manor, where you had the small hotel, the little general store, you know, the local pub, you know, all of that right there was, you know, and it was amazing to me. I fell in love with it. I really did. It was like I'd never seen it other than television.
Right.
You know, coming from a big city, you don't see this. And every time I get guests come in from out of town, I'll take them through downtown Manor, because it is indicative of everything we've watched on, you know, cowboy and Indian shows and things like that, and movies, and we've only seen that there. So yes, are you going to restore that? Absolutely, you have to. It's a big part of the economy in Manor. And you know, before we get off of the African American aspect, I do want to talk to you about the 3 different pandemics that are going on: the COVID-19, the social unrest, and the economic pandemic. And I'll go with the middle one first, since we were already talking about African American.
Okay.
Your take on Black Lives Matter?
My take on Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
I have not been quiet on that aspect of it. And it's been more so of working with my fellow electeds and others, right? In making sure the narrative of what we say doesn't come back to bite us in our own behind. Right?
And it's possible.
It's possible.
It's very possible.
And the reason I say that is any movement started with one particular population.
Yeah.
Whether it was the women's, whether it was LGBTQ, whether it was anything else. It started with one movement that ended up enhancing the lifestyle of more than just that one particular population.
Yeah.
And so the Black Lives Matter is starting from one particular population.
Yeah.
Unlike any of the other populations, it has the remnants of slavery, right? And it's not just, what most people think of, okay, we had the slavery, but, the Hispanics had their difficulties as far as undocumented Mexicans and so forth like that, right? But when you're talking about laying down the negative impacts of what has happened and how one economy has or population, right, has progressed over one population versus the other, it has been African Americans, right? And so when you're talking about these racial injustice and the societal injustice, the physical form of slavery has turned to a system form.
Yeah.
Right? And the physical form of it just being African Americans has changed to a system form of underserved, underrepresented populations.
You see that term represented actually without even being said, because now even in the marches, it's not just African American. It's not just Black lives out there that are marching.
Yeah.
There are Hispanics out there marching. There's white folks marching with us. There's plenty of people that's out there that see the racial injustice that have been happening.
Right.
So yeah, it is very important what your take on this would be as somebody who's serving a multicultural district.
Yeah, and I think that's the piece of it, is looking at it and saying, all right, I get that it is starting historically from the injustice of the African American population, but where the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment talking about equal rights and so forth is still flawed, is in the system now.
Yeah.
And that system does not necessarily only focus on African Americans anymore.
That's right.
It also focuses on Caucasians that are underserved, underprivileged
That's right.
areas, right? It also focuses it pretty much hits everybody. Now and I think this is the key word, the disproportionate rate
Yep.
is African American.
Unequal. That's right.
Followed by the Hispanics,
Sure.
right? But at the end of the day, if I'm able to change a system that focuses on underserved, underrepresented populations and treats them more negatively than those that are not within those populations, then if I change that system, doesn't that change the way things are viewed for everybody?
It should.
Right?
Yeah.
So even though I'm advocating on a focus that is focused in term Black Lives Matters, I'm also supporting if I ever become an underserved or underrepresented population, if you want to think about it that way.
Yeah.
Especially as you're talking about growth in America, sooner or later, populations are going to change. And I said this at the Black Austin Democrats event last year, and I said, hey, the same systems we don't fix now, when populations change,
Yes.
the populations that don't need the systems are now going to be the populations using those same systems.
Yes.
So don't look at it even if you have that particular view or lack of desire supporting the Black Lives Matter,
Yeah.
then look at it and saying, well, then how do I potentially support my population when the majority becomes a minority and the minority becomes a majority?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I've had the same fight, same struggle with Black Lives Matter, because what you start off doing today, you'll have to continue finishing. You have to keep the same energy. And for me, I've always thought that there's going to be 3 separate parts to this movement. The marching and the protesting, that's just one aspect. You got the systemic. You got to hit legislation now and then change, and then it's the follow up.
Yeah, and that's one of the things what I kind of like. I like about this new group, the Black Leaders Collective, right? Is that, and it goes right along with conversations that I've had with Councilman Rudy Materi in Pflugerville, with Councilwoman Natasha Harper in Austin, and Commissioner Trevelyan and so forth. We have to get both sides together, because at the end of the day, the things that need to change all come to the electeds.
Yeah.
And you have to understand, just like any other business, what you specifically need to be asking for, because you can get anything.
Yeah.
Or you may get, I can't do that, because you're asking for something that can't be done by them. And a good example would be well, who owns the police? City does. Council. Who owns the police department? I mean, who owns the police academy? County, right? And so it's, why would I ask city about an issue with a police academy when that's county?
Right.
Why would I go to county or to the nation when I got an issue with police departments when that's the city?
Yeah.
Right. And it's focusing and understanding those things. Then you have things as far as resolutions and ordinance and charter changes and understanding.
Well, you do know, you're the mayor. You change all of that. One phone call from you, and it's done.
No.
No?
No.
No.
No. Come on. No.
We elected you so that you can make the call, because I feel a certain way.
Let's say, no, bro. No, bro. Like if you the city, I put it from a business perspective, right? The city is a business.
They don't know your major is in that. You went to college for that. You got an MBA. Okay, all right.
You gotta go on there. So the city is a business, and it took me a while to learn this. After asking those questions, saying we need to do this, and Tom would be like, "Nah, you can't do that." Or like, well, we need to do this. And the finance person will be like, nah, you can't do that. And I'm like, well, we need to do this. And the legal person will be like, nope, can't do that. And I'm like, well, I can't do nothing, right? But it's a business, right? It's a business.
What can I do? You can pose for the picture.
But it's a business in a sense that how the city runs is off of the revenues it gets every year.
Yeah.
And there's multiple different streams that it gets the revenues. And sales tax isn't the number one.
Yeah.
You know, ad valorem from people paying their house rents and so forth, mortgage and stuff, you know, to other things. And so, you know, trying to build up more revenue for the city, trying to bring in more economy, because sometimes it's bringing a new business in, it may not bring any new revenue to the city. So now, you know, this new business wants to come in, but they want tax incentives breaks. They want to make sure that they don't have to pay for anything for 30 years. Yeah. So even though you brought this new thing in, if it's providing more jobs, do you go with that? Is it going to be selling stuff internally? Do you potentially make sales revenue off of that, right? Yeah. So it's all these weird things you got to take into priority and
Walmart,
factor.
We mean we're not getting paid?
No. It does not give as much as you think it would. And it's all based off of how it was created, the decisions that were made from the planning and zoning to the council back then, right? I mean, every business has its own model and determines how and when it will come to a place and develop. And it has to be within their margins of profitability. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so you even see this with Tesla, right? Yeah. Just because they wanted to come here, they still had to negotiate for months. Yeah. What you saw on this announcement is something we knew a year ago. Yeah. Right? Same thing with Amazon. When they did an announcement, this is something we knew a year ago. Right? Because you're talking about the willing. Go ahead.
No. I want you to finish that thought, but I wanted to get this out so that the people will understand that I didn't just say you got an MBA in business just for the sake of saying it. Because we've talked about your military leadership background, and now we're talking about your college education, which is a master's and obviously a doctorate in in business. Mm-hmm. So you do understand these things and how to bring a live economy to the city.
But I would change on that one. So we're gonna do real talk.
I'll be real.
I had to use what Councilman Danny Scarborough says. He says this all the time when we're talking about new candidates. Education don't mean nothing. And I agree with that. Yeah. Because I've come across numerous people that have credentials, that have titles, that have positions, and they're not the ones managing anything. Yeah. You talk to them on the phone, you realize that very quickly, right? Yeah. They're book smart. They don't have street smarts, right? My oldest brother is probably one of the smartest guys I know, right? Doesn't have the education. Broke his back in the Navy, first couple of years in, relearned how to walk through martial arts. Yeah. Been doing entrepreneurship, MMA, boxing, putting things together, right? Doesn't have near the education that I have. Right. But when you put us both in the same room, guess where everybody goes to? Mm-hmm. Him, not me. Mm-hmm. Him, absolutely, not me. Absolutely. Right. So, yes, I have credentials. I've learned certain verbiage, certain vernacular, certain processes and systems. Right. Yeah. But I would say this too. It's also, you asked that one question a while back. Is it education or is it life experience? Yeah. Life experience. Right? Yeah. Because I can learn all that stuff and get A's, which I didn't, you know, and all that stuff. But what I'm talking about, what I'm looking at is sitting down with people that are smarter than me. Yeah. And saying this is what needs to happen. You know, developing the economics development committee of people that are smarter than all of us. Yeah. That know this space from a city, county, state, national to develop us. Absolutely. Right? Reaching out and saying we need to be a part of these different organizations. Yeah. So we have smarter people, bigger cities that are different types of places. Yeah. Informing us, and I think that's more so. Yeah. Business management, understanding, whatever you call it, how things should operate.
Right.
But at the end of the day, just because I sit in a conference and listen to the big boss give a presentation day in, day out, I know what he's going to say. I know what he's going to respond with and all that. But then it comes my turn to actually be the one to give the presentation. It's night and day.
Yeah, but in a general sense, you're absolutely right. In the real world, with real talk, you're absolutely correct. But with the Honorable Dr. Larry Wallace, Jr.,
All it does for me.
Well, watch this now. whose motto is I want to go through it now. So let me go through it right now.
Yeah.
And learn it now, so that when I have to go through it,
I told you about that.
I've been through it.
You bring us up for early conversations.
And I don't fail through it. You know, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is a person that we're talking to. This is a person that's the mayor of Manor. This is who the people elected, right? Whether they know your entire resume or not, you can look at that resume and tell this man didn't want to lose. This man maximized every bit of every ounce of time he had. And that's the kind of thing you bring to the office. It would have to be. You didn't just turn it off. That don't turn off. You can't turn off Larry, right? You can't turn that off just because you get the title mayor, right? So this hardworking individual who has been to school for business, who does do his research, whether he tell us he only works 20 hours a week a day or not, he's here at home, even on his home time, while the kids are probably running around crazy. The wife is in the bedroom watching TV or whatever the case. But you got your iPad here, you're reading, and you coming up on different schemes and how to bring businesses into the city. You know, you're not counting that even as time served as part of your mayoral job, right? You would have to be that looking at that resume. That's what I'm talking about. You're putting in more time than the people know, even to do the job, to bridge everybody together. And that's honorable. You know, that's honorable. You know, you don't know this part, I never told you this, but when we first met, obviously you told me call you Larry, and you know, we should, Dave, call me Dave. You know, after you got elected, I struggled.
Why?
To call you Larry. Cause you mayor now, you know. You was mayor now. So the first time we saw each other after that, I said, "How you doing, Mr. Mayor?" You was like, Larry. I'm like, oh man, no. You know. But to me, and I was always taught this. Yeah, we can be personable when we're alone, but when we're in public, I have to call you or address you as to what the people voted you as. You know, because they see you that way.
And I think, you know, I have not told you this. That mindset for me comes from when I switched over from enlisted to become an officer. Yeah. And one of my peers, he passed away with cancer a couple years ago. Sergeant Nixon. We were stationed in Hawaii together. Dude was always laughing, smiling, great guy. And I went to go meet him down in Fort Hood when I was a second lieutenant. And he would call me sir. And I told him, you know, I picked this dude up in Fort Worth during a blizzard when he came in town. I wrecked my car picking him up. Yeah. Right? I mean, that's how much respect I have for this guy. And he was calling me sir. And I told him, I said, Nixon, don't ever call me sir. We got a past, right? And for me, it's always those things of there's certain people that we already had a relationship before. Right. Right? And a relationship in the sense of we've already established a rapport of dialogue, information, and so forth.
Right.
And to me, it's more for me to remember and stay humble to the fact of we have that type of conversation where I can be able to ask you something straightforward.
Definitely.
And expect to get something straightforward. You know?
Definitely.
Because to me, I've had people that I've worked with that have considered to be friends. They want to tell me the good stuff, but then they don't want to tell me the bad stuff.
Yeah.
And then when I find out, then they want to say, well, I hinted at it. Well, no, we don't hint.
No, don't hint.
We're not hitting. I don't read between lines with friends.
No hint.
Right? If you're going to call me and tell me something good, I expect you to call me and tell me something bad.
Absolutely.
Right? And so for me, that's where that piece comes, is like, we met before I was in the seat.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? We met before that. We had dialogue before that. And I don't want you to start being cautious on what you say to me because a position I'm now in.
Absolutely.
I still need that level of information. I still need that level of transparency.
Absolutely.
So I'm making recommendations and guidance based on as much transparent information as possible than the filtered stuff. Right?
Absolutely.
And that's when you start getting in trouble, is when people don't want to tell you stuff.
Absolutely. And that's not a problem with me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I do have a filter, only because you do have to have a filter in how you talk to people in front of other people.
Mm-hmm.
You and I can talk about anything. We've done it, and it's not a major issue. Me calling you Mr. Mayor or Mayor Wallace, that's for the cameras. That's for the folks.
Look,
you know, but because, and I say that because folks, you know, people don't know you as Larry. They know you as Mayor. They voted for Mayor.
I hear you. Every time I talk to my dad,
Yeah.
yes, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. Oh, Dad, you better stop that. You better stop that, right?
You're the coolest dude I know, though.
You know, he's an expert in the healthcare space, especially out here. So there's things he helps me out with, and he'll be like, "I'll get right on that, Mr. Mayor." You know, and I'm like, well, you better stop that, Dad. Come on now. So, you know, for me, it's those things of uncomfortability,
Yeah.
right? And I get it. But for me, it's those ways that I've kind of just naturally learned over time.
Yeah.
That's how I try to make sure I don't get too far removed,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
I don't get too far removed, because if I go back to the military, there'll be people, you'll be like, man, why do these colonels or generals think they can just do this, or they think they can do that? Because they've transitioned into this more senior level of where it can be perceived that they're always right or they're always wrong, or I can't necessarily tell them how it is, you know, or there's going to be some type of retribution.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's one of those things of the leaders I've always loved, they just were down to earth. They joked. They were themselves. But then they would turn around and handle their business.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you would be able to come in and talk with them, socialize with them, talk about your personal stuff, and all, get guidance, get mentorship, get feedback, and then also turn back around and say, oh yeah, by the way, you screwed up on this and you screwed up on that. You know, don't do it again.
Right.
You know,
right.
and not everybody knows how to do that, but I have certain tricks of the trade that at least try to keep me from, you know, getting high on my own sauce, if you want to say.
Right, right. The job, and my job, day in, day out, my voluntary job, which is my full-time job, I have to speak truth to power. So, you know, no matter who you are, I have to be able to tell you the truth. You know, no matter how it seemed, no matter how hard it may be, I have to be able to do that, you know, no matter what.
Yeah.
So I understand exactly where you're going with that. The last thing I really wanted to, I know we're running over here, but I wanted to talk to you about the 2020 census here in Manor. How much support did you get for the 2020 census?
Support in what aspect?
That you know of, meaning people that filled it out.
Right.
The expectation of the people that filled it out.
I mean, we definitely got a higher percentage than we had last time.
Okay.
Scott Dunlop over at City Hall is managing the census program for the city. And I'll be honest, I've sent a couple emails back to the U.S. Census people and basically said, hey, he's doing a good job, or hey, your information that you have on our city is wrong, because they're still in some aspects looking at us as the underperforming city.
Yeah.
Right. And luckily Scott and the team, they're doing their job of keeping us informed. We're like at 2% higher than the local cities, or 2% higher than the national average.
Yeah.
And they're trying to tell us that we're under.
Yeah.
And I got to go back and say, well, no. And I'm not pushing that message out to my community, because it makes it look like, we're acting just like what you would expect a minority population to do. I'm like, no. So doing that pushback, and Scott's been helping out a lot of that. We should have a video from council coming out. I believe you said this week regarding it.
Okay.
The biggest thing is, I did get an email from the census over the weekend that now they're going door to door for the ones that have not filled it out online, and have been getting a lot of turnaways. And the big piece of this is, the message is, yeah, you can identify there's nothing negative like ICE or whatever is gonna occur. The biggest piece on this is the information we get from the census is going to be the same exact information, validated information we're going to be able to use in branding and messaging who we are, the certain services and programs we need, because now we're able to speak on the 2020 population, the 14,000 people we're saying we have. What does the family composition look like? What does the regular income kind of look like? The education, the age of the people that are here, so we can have more targeted conversations on what is really needed within this city to take care of this city. Because a lot of times, county or state or other organizations or other businesses want to come into the city, and they may just look at it being a heavily minority city. Or they're just looking at it as a place of growth, and they want to provide services, and they haven't really done the digging in to, they may need to have tweaks or revisions in what they're trying to provide, so it really is impactful here to this local city, to everybody here. So that census, the more people that fill that out, one, gives us a better ability to make sure who we talk to, we're able to say, and I say this a lot, you can ask City Hall, to businesses that come in, I'm like, that's great. We don't need that. That's great.
Yeah.
It's great you want to build, some more houses, but we need this. Or if you ask me, we need that, and that's why we need that census data, so we can have those hard conversations.
That's
and
right.
As we go into our comprehensive plan, and this comprehensive plan is going to be looking at how do we want to build out the city. And it's not, and we specifically talk when I talk with council and City Hall, the guidance that we all have agreed to is City Council is not going to have a voice in the comprehensive plan. What we want to see, what we believe needs to be in Manor, is not for us to interject.
Yeah.
That's why we created the Economic Development Committee. That's why the surveys, when we get to that portion, are going to go out to the community again. Tom, our city manager, wants to do a collaborative one with the school district to also get the kids what they would like to see, so we get a more holistic understanding of what people would like to see in the city, not just the adults, but also the kids too. And then take that back to the Economics Development Committee of all these industry leaders plus strategic planners, and then come up with this 20-year, 10-year, 5-year development plan that will then go to the community and for the community to vote on. Right? And then once the community votes on, and that will then be the locked-in guidance for future council and City Hall, for the Planning and Zoning Commission, everybody, right? And so that's really the plan on this, and it's going to take time. But everything we're doing is connected in some form or fashion. And the reason conversations like this is so to be able to tell people we're not just willy-nilly making decisions, and we're not trying to do things that we believe needs to be here, right?
Right.
It's more or less just saying what is going on in your community, what is needed, asking those questions, and then also saying at the same time, who needs to come to the table to help the city hall team make it come into fruition, right? And then when it comes to council for voting, it's not something that council wanted to see happen.
Right.
It was something that was actually recommended through experts, through knowledgeable individuals, both within the city, outside the city, right? Collaboratively to bring things to council.
I think one of the important things, because a lot of what you just said, I understand because I'm in the city, state, and federal government stuff, but the average person that'll be watching this, or the viewer, they may not know that you were one of 16 mayors in Travis County that signed a letter for $23 million relief package to be sent to Travis County. And in that, obviously it'd be sent to Travis County, but the amount that Manor would receive from that package depends actually on the amount of people or the population in Manor. So without those census filled out, we don't get all the money that should be given to us because you decided not to fill out the census.
And you're right. A lot of things that people go off are per capita. That's the term, per capita.
Per capita, absolutely.
Per resident within the city limits.
Absolutely.
And if we have 4,000 people that did not fill out the paperwork to be counted, then let's say, for example, the CARES Act, the county approved giving $55 per capita, per resident.
Right.
So if there are 500 people that did not get captured, then that's 500 times $55 that the city would not receive.
And that means that limits the amount of COVID relief that you have, the different things that you're able to provide during such a pandemic. It all came back to that because when I'm able to count how many people are in my city or even my church, and we're getting monies allocated or even a grant allocated to how many people, it matters that everybody is counted. And so I wanted the people to understand actually how that works, because if they understand that each census that's filled out is worth $75 in grant money to the city in such a pandemic or in times of economic relief.
It's even more than that. I mean, the census is key because it restructures allocations from the national level on its budgets to the Department of Education, Department of Transportation, stuff like that, right?
That's right.
National level. That's what the census really focuses on. That trickles then down to states, county, and then even the city. That's like the number one data information place.
Absolutely.
Right? But then you still have your annual data tracking, right?
Yeah.
The stuff that the school district does, the stuff that the city may do, because you have these different organizations. How can I, in going back to business and thinking entrepreneurially, right? How can I advocate that I need a certain amount of money, right? If I don't know how many people I have, or I don't know where the money truly needs to be spent at.
There you go.
But then again, what if I go in and I ask for a certain amount of money, and then I didn't know I actually had maybe a significant number of more people? Then I went in and I didn't even ask for the right amount of money, and then that money gets used quickly because there were more people that actually needed it than we knew about. Right? So it has all these different types of ripple effects, and I get people don't want to identify, people don't want to fill these documents out, but again, everything's a business. And unless I have the data, unless I have the information, then the city, your leaders are going in with inaccurate information, false data, and then when the programs are not able to take care of the population as intended, it's because the information that we used to get the program was incorrect.
It was flawed.
Yeah.
And it even translates to when you're gonna get a HEB in Manor. Well, if we're on a list of HEB buildings. We know that they do it every 5 years, and they consider new venues for their stores every 5 years. But if they're not going to consider any city under 15,000 residents, and we have registered 14,000, but 2,000 people never filled out the census. Now everything that all 17,000 people been asking for can't come here because of those couple thousand people that didn't fill out the form.
It also plays into another area where you could say, maybe they say 15,000 people, we end up having 11,000, right? Say 2,000 didn't submit or fill out the census or whatever, right? Well, if I have a higher number and I have the real number, there may be other things that HEB may be looking at as sustainability.
Yeah.
It could be potentially maybe some other type of restaurant or some other type of fast food or some other name brand thing. And if we're able to potentially use that number and use the growth and use the development that's going around us, right, to bring some of those things in, then we may be able to get the HEB in.
Yeah.
It's not a one-way deal or anything. It's all about how do you, again, find out how that organization is making its business decisions of what is profitable and what isn't. Because at the end of the day, a business says, I don't care what you want. I care what's going to be profitable. Because I came into this business to make money. Right? And so then you say, well, if you're saying we don't have enough people, but you do look at this and you look at this and you look at that, and that may change your mind, then how do I get this and I get this and I get that, right? And so for us at council, it's, again, getting with these different organizations, getting with these different experts, right, that are economic savvy, that can also get us in contact with the people that do know these different organizations and how they make the decisions, how they think more than what they're telling us.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So then we can change the way we operate, the way we navigate. I have a quarterly meeting with all transportation entities to talk specifically about 290, the Green Line, 973.
Yeah.
We talk about that quarterly. Why? So the conversation is continually going.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And also it puts pressure that if one of the organizations wants to back out, all the other ones are saying, we've been doing this for a year now. We said we were going this way.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so it's again, kind of back to what you say, whether it's 20 hours, whether it's 40 hours, whatever, however many hours I'm putting in and other council members are putting in, our focus is, how do we make sure conversations are occurring? How are we making sure that we are at the table to be informed and to build the networks and to build the communication and get the resources to help our city hall team do what the community is asking for? But then again, right, some people want, I guess, an expectation that I'm supposed to be by the local grocery store talking to everybody.
Yeah.
Right? Smaller manner, we could do that. But as we grow, we cannot afford to do that. Systems have to be in place. That's why we're creating these different committees. That's right. That's why we're launching this Real Talk and with streaming our city council meetings and all the other meetings, right?
Be totally transparent.
I get it. People do not have social media. Not everybody does. But hopefully there's more people being informed of what's going on and why we're doing certain things, so we don't have opposition to managing this growth and managing the demands. We have more people coming into the city now that have totally different demands than there were 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And as we continue to grow, do we want to see Manor grow? And then because we didn't take care of our community, both old and new, now we see them leaving to go somewhere else. Yeah. Right? And that's where we're on the cusp of, is we're growing. There's nowhere else to move within Travis County. We're growing. Yeah. We can continue to build nothing but houses, but then again, right? I don't want to have to drive 30 minutes to go in to get something.
That's right.
again, do I really want to drive 30 minutes to go, downtown and work? Like, if we can't find ways to provide some of those things here, we don't have to be an Austin. We don't have to, but if we can't find ways to provide some of that stuff here, we're going to see all the people that moved here also leave.
That's right.
And then what's going to happen is you're going to have those small towns that then can't even bring anything in.
Right.
Because the momentum, the focus, the things that keep it thriving are going to move, especially when we have nothing but a lot of small businesses. When we're 75% small business ran, you got to have people. And if the people are now going other places because they want something different, because we're not bringing it here to them, then you're going to start seeing the same businesses, the same people that Manor's growing off of their backs from their hard work. You're going to start seeing them die.
That's it. That's it. And that's why it's important for the census. That's why I wanted you to clear that up for the people, let them know how important that is. And we're going to go out on this one. This one is near and dear to me. I know you haven't been in office yet, even a year. Mm-hmm. What about a second term?
I don't know. The conversations. Yeah, this is a good question. The conversations I've had with most of my council in Summer City Hall and others within my personal circle, is I'm not a fan of sitting in a seat just to sit in a seat. And a lot of what I felt needed to be done has occurred. Mm-hmm. Everything that I said in the State of the City address that was going to get launched has been launched. Almost all of it is within the charter committee to be made locked in.
Yeah.
And so if that happens, then it's all permanent, right? The structural change needed to manage the growth. And after that point, then it becomes next year is really solidifying these different committees and getting them really, really going. So then after that, do I just need to sit in the seat just to cruise control?
No, there's still other things that have to be implemented. There's a lot of things that'll still have to be done. Even things that you're putting in place this year has to be followed up on in years to come.
True, but and the thing here is, once again, right, when we say this is not a paid position, there are certain things in this term that needed to be done to ensure the survivability of Manor to develop in the way that Manor wants it to develop, right? Once those things are in place, me walking away from Houston Tilson, me not necessarily looking for another paid job to help offset the expenses of just one income from the wife, right?
I don't think that. Wait! Don't gloss that. Don't gloss me there. Huh? Say it again.
Say what again?
Say you walked away from being professor at Houston Tilson. You don't have another paid job, another income. Your wife's income is the only income you have coming in so that you could focus on being mayor of Manor. Is that it?
Yeah, why you gotta put it like that? Why you gotta put it like that?
I'm just saying, but, is that it, really?
I mean, I got my retirement, I got my disability, but but there are certain things, and the reason I put it this way is there are certain things that I can look at my wife and my kids and say, I'm doing this and not doing that because there's something that needs to be done.
There's a focus, right? Yeah.
Now the question comes down as to, unless there's a deal that needs to happen or we're in negotiations or something like that, right? If we're not at that point yet, do I go into another term when the structural stuff that needs to be done is already locked in? It's already been set up. Everybody's moving in that direction. The next person just needs to maintain it, and they can do some other things as well, right? I mean, again, we've all been in places where the leader has sat in the seat longer than they probably needed to. or that they got complacent because there was nothing that they at that moment in time felt needed to still be pushed on, right?
There's a comfort level that comes to the people because they know you, they voted you in first term, and you handled these things. There's a level of uncertainty as to where the city's gonna go if we now have the mayor that handled the stuff is now not running anymore, and we gotta choose one of these people.
I hear you. I hear you.
So now.
All I gotta say is we're too early on for me to give you.
Okay, that's the political answer. All right. All right. You gave me the political answer on that one, y'all. I'm gonna leave him alone. I'm gonna ask him next segment on the next episode of our show. I'm gonna ask him the same thing again. Man, thank you so much for inviting me into your home and taking some of these rapid fire questions. I have a lot more I want to ask. I have plenty, but we said we were only going to do it for so long.
Yeah.
45 minutes. We went a little over today, first show.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you for inviting me into your home for real talk.
Yeah.
And letting us into your world.
Appreciate
and being
it.
transparent.
I ain't no problem anytime. That's what real leaders are supposed to do.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Hey,
and before we close out, I want to give shouts out to Mr. Alex Ponce over here. Come on over here, Alex.
We got some shout outs from the chat too.
did you? Good.
You know, definitely want to give the thanks to Alex Ponce over here.
And just so everybody know, we are socially distant. We may seem closer in the
So
video.
what I'll do is I'll move out the way so he can come. Go ahead and get your shout out, man.
Alex Ponce, Letterbox.
Letterbox Dreams. That's right.
That's right. Let's do it.
All right, appreciate it.
We got some comments in the streams. I don't know if you want to hear them.
Oh no, let's go ahead and close this out. I think we're about an hour and a half
Yeah,
in
yeah,
now,
we
don't want to make it too long.
We told the folks 45 minutes. Thanks a lot, guys, for
Appreciate
tuning in. God bless you all, and we'll see you next time.